thank you very much, Pete, for the opportunity for me to be able to talk to you. It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you, considering all the work that you've done for the Tomb Raider series. It's an honor and a privilege, and I've heard so much about you from other people like Ash, people like Tina as well, and other people I know from the Dark Angel Symphony. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Likewise, to say I'm really honoured you're sort of, we're chatting. So
no, the honour is mine, my friends. Honestly, at the start of it, was a little bit nervous, but it seems like you've put my nerves completely at ease just by talking to you.
The average guy from the northeast speaking Geordie, seriously. There's nothing there's nothing to be nervous about.
How are you doing though today, Pete? You doing okay?
I'm all right today, actually. Yeah. I'm in the office today, which is pretty cool. So there's no one around. I've had to open all the windows though because it's just absolutely sweltering. So
it has been unbearable the last week, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I've had to open the windows, the door, the windows in the corridor, just so there's a lot of through draft. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and drip like a tap.
Yeah.
So.
Are those a bunch of acoustic panels that you've got behind you there?
They are, yes, yeah.
Are they GIK?
They are, yes.
They are GIK.
Yeah.
I've got a GIK acoustic panels because they started doing ones that you can actually print artwork onto.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pointing at it.
Yeah, no, go for it.
You can sort of see there's some absorbers there. I think you can actually buy them where you can actually put your own artwork on them now,
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Because they got the metal ones, you've got like ones you can have like honeycomb designs and stuff on, which is pretty cool. But I've actually got a full-on Tomb Raider print on mine, which is behind there. I'll have to send you a photo. But it's a full spread of what they did for the 25th anniversary for Tomb Raider 1. It's the one where Lara Croft's looking at the dinosaur, and it's like 120 centimeters wide or something like that. It's a pretty big wall covering beastie. Cool. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. Because I used to have those egg carton sound panels like a lot of people who were starting on YouTube and stuff did.
They work.
They do, but they do gather a lot of dust. So it was a nightmare to clean.
If I put my hand at the top of these, there'll be a lot of stuff on the top of there. But to me, that helps absorb the sound as well. So
yes, of course, yeah, brilliant. That's a good way to look at it, Pete. Very good way.
That's a careful mind, mate.
Yes. So I just want to obviously ask you a few questions about obviously Tomb Raider and our lovely lady Ms. Croft. And to start with, I thought I'd just sort of dip in briefly into your time with Core Design. So I just wanted to know personally how you as a composer got started. Was there any kind of like family influence with that, or any outside influence that kind of like directed you towards pursuing a career in being a composer? And what was it about video games that enticed you the most about making music for them?
I've always been interested in musical instruments. I've always kind of wanted a drum kit or a trumpet or something. I've always been like, I want that, My dad has always been quite encouraging as well. I think he was in a band when it was an absolute failure, but he was in a band, so I think I must have inherited some of them genes somewhere. And I also remember listening to kind of like records when I was younger with him, and I used to think they were absolutely amazing, and I used to apparently with knitting needles, I was conducting, so age of 2 or 3 I was kind of like somehow bragging it. But computer games, I got naturally the two were separate entities to begin with. I was always fascinated by music, and as soon as I could get the first musical instrument, I would just kind of mess on with that. As soon as I got my first computer console, I loved video games. I lived and breathed video games, kind of like early teens until kind of like mid-20s, I would say. Life revolved around video games. And a friend of mine, he was an artist. He was very good at drawing. He was into video games as well, and he ended up working for a video game company, doing graphics for video games, obviously. And I just thought, do you know what it is? I could combine my love of music to video games. I used to love the likes of Rob Hubbard and Martin Galway, Ben Daglish, all the kind of Commodore 64 heroes. And listen to that kind of like retro 3-channel SID music. It used to kind of like, it got me influenced quite heavily to kind of move my love for music into doing sort of like electronic music, So the kind of the two just over time morphed. And when my friend had been working for a video games company for about a year, he said it's really cool, some great guys work there, it's good fun, etc., etc. I just thought, let's just see what happens. And I spent, I think the next year and a half, sending cassettes up at the time. That's how long ago it was.
Cassettes? Who'd have thought?
I know, exactly. You mentioned my kids now, they've got a clue what a cassette is. I think they barely know what a CD is.
But now they know what vinyl is, which is very interesting how that's flipped around, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, if somebody said to me 10 years ago vinyl would be, pun intended, cutting edge again, I would have said you're bullshitting. So I don't know how that was, but yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, it's not as big as what it was, but it's. I think it's getting that way. A lot of people do. It's the same with synthesizers. The same with all sorts of plugins and music-oriented stuff. It's all. Everyone seems to be focusing on the innovation of the yesteryear. A lot of the equipment now, compressors, EQs, reverbs. It's all based on old vintage equipment. People want that old retro sound. So
I mean, the amount of people that are going for the synthesizers that people like Vangelis used and stuff for Blade Runner and things like that, and are reusing it, like Synthwave's made a massive comeback and a massive grow and rise because of the amount of people that are just starting to use those instruments again and make them popular. It's like
exactly.
The 80s Mark II, a little bit.
It is, yeah. The 80s were so innovative. I mean, there was so much going on. There was just so much to kind of experiment with and try and make your own, put your own curve on things. But I think nowadays everything's kind of standardized, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? There's a formula that people follow, whereas back in the day, everyone was creative, and I think the music from the 80s is a lot different how it is now. Don't get us wrong, some great music now. Whether this is an age thing or whether it's just a decade thing, I'm not as influenced by today's music as I was by 80s, 90s music.
I'm in my 30s and I think exactly the same thing. I listen to all the mainstream music and I'm just like, I'd rather go seek out something on Spotify or SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Just to be a bit hipstery, I guess, but that's just me. It's just like the stuff I'm personally interested in more and more is in different places. It's not something that is sort of reached the mainstream. And also stuff like your music is now on Spotify, and obviously SoundCloud, you got some albums to listen to there as well.
Join SoundCloud, everybody.
Yes, exactly. I guess the next question I would want to ask would be, can you just tell us a little bit more about what it was like to work at Core at the time? I believe you covered it in other interviews before, but I just wanted to kind of get a brief idea for my listeners as to sort of what Core design was like at the time, how it was to sort of compose for them, and what the team was like, I guess.
Yeah, it was very camaraderie. Everyone was friends. Everyone was best friends, It wasn't everyone wasn't segregated in all the little groups, everyone seemed to just kind of come together. I mean, it wasn't huge teams initially, so, it helped, by things not being overwhelming, but it was quite a relaxed atmosphere. I mean, everyone was hard work, and don't get us wrong, we used to, we used to kind of slacken off sometimes, but we'd always make up for it later. So it wasn't a regimental 9 or 5 kind of thing, We might roll in at 10, 11, get bollocked for coming in late, and then kind of start working at 1 o'clock, but we wouldn't leave until 9, 10, even beyond, sometimes. So we still cracked on and got on. We just knew we had to do stuff, and it had to be done by a certain time, It was, that's kind of how it worked. And if anyone slackened and didn't do anything for days, something was said, But you probably didn't dare not do, because you kind of... It was also a competitive thing that people wanted to kind of... I don't know, everyone just seemed to want to work. The atmosphere was just right that people wanted to work.
Well, that sounds...
We used to socialise quite well together, Everyone would go out and would just have, it was such a camaraderie kind of experience.
A lot of people do say that the game designing aspects and development process was a lot different as opposed to the AAA industry today. I mean, would you say that it's something that you personally prefer, or would you sort of say that the modern way of it being done nowadays is perfectly fine or better?
I mean, personally, I'm sure newbies to the industry would love how it is today. But I've experienced it from quite the early days. I mean, not the early days, that would be the 80s for me, but I kind of experienced it from the mid-90s. On the smaller teams with more relaxed kind of protocol, I suppose. I prefer when things are more relaxed rather than everything have to tick boxes and everything have to be scrutinised and pass through, 4 or 5 different people who've all got different opinions, so you never quite get it right. If you think it's right, it's never right, because it might be right to one person who looks at it, but you get mixed conflicts as well. Sometimes it's so frustrating because you'll have version 1.1759A last final. This is it, please. And it's like,
that sounds exactly like my approach whenever I'm writing like Premiere projects or anything like that. I'm editing out videos or exporting. It's always like the final cut, the final cut, the final fucking cut. Please work for God. Oh, Jesus Christ, please don't corrupt.
In the 4 days, it was like, I've never had a schedule to follow. I didn't have like, today I need to come in and do this, I've got to do that, a Jira task or anything like that. It was all just like, I knew what I needed to do, and I just cracked on with it. I would come in and say, okay, I feel inspired to do this, so I'll do this. Tomorrow I'll come in, I'll feel inspired to do that, I'll do that. I won't kind of follow it in a chronological order that'll satisfy producers, this and that. Whether that's a good way, a bad way of working, from the outside in, I don't know, but for me it worked, and I think it worked for a lot of the people that work there too. It just kept that creativity flowing.
Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who's like, does like passion projects and stuff like what I'm doing with the retrospective series that I'm doing, it's something that I like to take a bit of time with, because I don't want to stick to a deadline and force myself to put out work that I'm not particularly proud of. So I'm guessing with the same approach to you, it sounds very similar.
Yeah.
You would want the ability to be a lot more relaxed, to be able to work to your own flow and not creatively stunt yourself in order to produce something.
As long as you knew you had a timeline to follow, what I mean? It wasn't kind of subcategorized into days, hours, tasks, whatever. You had a month, it's going to go to E3 next month. It must sound good. You do what you can to make it sound good. Whereas in more recent experiences, it's been like it's almost like a blueprint of what it will end up like, and it's got to follow that blueprint. And if it's not within spec, it's generally dissed. And it's like, to me, that's not the creative way of working. That's the way you might as well just be pushing the mouse for someone.
That's very true. That's a very good way of putting it, actually. Sort of very autonomous and less personal.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So I just wanted to move on to what question I got here from one of my users, who basically wants to know, out of all of the Tomb Raider soundtracks that you have personally worked on for chord design, which one would you say that you're the most proud of? And I think I kind of probably already know what the answer is that you're going to give.
Go on.
Angel of Darkness.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk?
It's... it depends on what day you ask it. I might have a different. I change my mind all the time. So you could ask us in an hour's time, it might slightly change. But I think I slightly always gravitate towards Angel of Darkness, purely because I think the obviously when the music was written by me and Martin Iverson, it was a joint effort. It wasn't just me. We both wrote it. I did a bit. He done a bit. He'd pass it back to me, I'd do a bit, pass it back to him, would stand in each other's room and say, why don't we try this? It was really kind of like every note was kind of scrutinized between us. Not in a ridiculous way, it was just kind of, we went with the flow, what sounded great, let's move that, let's do this. And then the orchestrator spent a lot of time on transferring that MIDI to actual orchestral notes. We knew what the size of the orchestra was going to be before it was done. And I think he went to town with that, I think he went to town with that more than most things, because that's the first thing you're going to hear. And I think he did a really good job, and hearing it live was just like, wow, okay, that's one to be proud of. Yeah, there's always going to be little niggly things that I pick up on. I think the percussion was too loud, for instance. I'm too critical at times, but I think the percussion was probably too loud. But, in general, it was a bloody good performance and a hell of an orchestrated
Considering you guys only had, what was it, one take to do this all in?
It was
basic, more or less.
We had 2-3 hour sessions to do about 40-45 minutes piece of music, which is absolutely, I mean, look, at the time I thought that was forever, but you look back now and John Williams has like 6 months to do a Star Wars, you know what I mean? It's like, hang on, that would have been cool. But it's like, and I think one of them hours, or 2 of them hours, was taken up by some sort of Laura PRing. So I was like, I remember sitting there thinking, this is great, but we really need to crack on, But I think the Angel of Darkness theme there, it was what the LSO did was they would get the piece up and they would play the part as a practice. That was the first time they'd ever seen it. So they would do a take. It was always recorded. And then, if, you know, we'll kind of say, well, let's try another one. And they try another one. And generally the second take, it was done. It was like, wow. I think the Angel of Darkness theme that you hear in the game was a third take. Now, the reason for that is
really?
Because, I mean, you could fix it. Looking back now, you know, with today's technology, it could be easily fixed. But the harp at the end, ding, 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 that last note was completely out of tune. So the harpist had to tune their strings up, you know, to get it right. Because it was like, oh, this is great. And then the last note is completely, it's like the triangle, getting it like on the wrong beat, you know. But
if only you had Pro Tools back in that day, hey?
Yeah, they did. Pro Tools has been around since the early. I mean, to be honest, if I had sat and thought about it, we probably could have done it back then, you know, for the sake of it. But we done a third take, and it was, you know, it was perfect. There's always something from that third take. I think that's better than the second take, or there's something better from the second take. So you can never get it mix and match, you know.
You can just get obsessed with chopping and changing and Frankensteining some kind of perfect take
you've
out
got
of
to kind of draw
different
lines
ones.
and think, actually, that was good enough. And that's a problem I've always had. I've always kind of like overproduced material. So I've done it. I can do it better. And then I look back and think, hang on, the first edition that I've done that was better than this millionth one. You know, it's like, so
you're too much of a perfectionist, Pete.
Yeah, it's a Virgo. It is. You know, it's something I've actually learned to kind of draw a line at. I've thought, do you know what it is? It's not the end of the world if it's not exactly how I want it. It's never going to be exactly how I want it. You know, I've got to learn to understand that it's how it is. It is what it is. I hate that phrase, but I do say it.
It's funny that you should actually mention the orchestrator, because that was actually something I was going to ask about. It was a bloke called Peter Wright, I believe, isn't it?
Wright, yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Wright, sorry.
It's an A, not an I, but yeah.
One of the questions I was actually going to ask about that particular role was, how much did that person have an impact on the final soundscape of the Angel of Darkness soundtrack compared to when you and Martin Iveson were hashing stuff out? How much did that change when he interpreted it to an orchestra?
Some of the tracks are very, very similar to the MIDI versions. Some of the tracks, like, they're not far from what we did, but they have the little twiddly bits, should we say, in that, you know, you could probably spend 5 days trying to get these twiddly bits to sound real and then not be happy with them. So he put these bits in that would work with an orchestra. And the Angel of Darkness theme in particular, there's a lot of movement in the instruments in there that we would not have put in the MIDI versions. We might have got similar kind of effects if we were to produce the MIDI versions properly. If that was going to be the versions that were in the game, we would have polished them a little bit more, but we didn't. We kind of just wrote what we wrote and says, there you go, do what you want with it. I mean, for example, I was writing some parts which would not work with the real orchestra. You know, you kept saying vibraphones are between this and that, they're not right down there somewhere. I said, okay, just move them up then, and now he's doubled up with an oboe or something. But yeah, I think he did a great job. You know, there's certain things in there that, yes, it was the first time we'd done stuff, so, you know, it was like, I think to do something for a first time, I think the results were pretty outstanding, if I may say that myself.
Well, of course you can, and I think a lot of people, including myself, would agree. Because when I actually came to playing Angel of Darkness for the video, it was actually the first ever time that I'd heard the music from it, that I'd actually played the game, and even the first time I'd actually completed it. I wasn't there for it on launch, so I wasn't a part of the zeitgeist at the time surrounding it. I just heard hearsay from people who bought it in my friends group and what they said. But the actual music is one of the strongest part of it, I believe, in my opinion. I think it's actually the strongest part of Angel of Darkness. It's certainly it's one of the most memorable soundtracks in the entire series. The Angel of Darkness, hold your head up high, my friend. It's well earned, this praise, because the Angel of Darkness theme, actually, considering it's done in the third take, you said, and all the stuff you're basically doing by the seat of your... Yeah, one by the seat of your pants as well, all this stuff. It's actually quite impressive how it all sounded so cohesive, at least to us. You, like most creatives, can basically just be like, I don't quite like that, I don't quite like that. But at the end of the day, to most schmucks like us who are just sitting there listening to, music sound good, so we're absolutely satisfied by it.
Dan still looks very tired. I couldn't I hated that from day one.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't stand it. I can still hear all the imperfections in it. And I'm not even 100% happy with the T-Dance version, but I don't think it's anything wrong with what anyone's done. I just think it's one of the tracks I'm never, ever, ever going to be happy with. But there was a lot. I mean, on the Angel of Darkness version, I just couldn't listen to it for years, because I could just It's like if you write a piece of music and you get a singer come in and they do a really great vocal, but there's one that's just slightly off, and they go, "Oh, it'll be all right, it'll be all right." You go, "No, you've got to get it right, because you listen to that, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger," and that's what's happened with Dance Look Veritatis.
Your mind exaggerates it over time because you're paying more attention to it. You're amplifying it mentally. So, I get that.
So that's kind of Dance Lux Veritatis. I was never quite happy with that, but it ended up being one of the most popular tracks of the game. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm seeing this from the wrong angle, and you know what I mean?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, one of my personal favourite tracks from when I listened to the Dark Angel Symphony was the Remember the Amulets track,
right,
which is a personal favourite of mine. I don't know how you feel about that particular track, but like out of all, like most of the songs on there, I actually think that's the best in my opinion.
Can you remember what that version is? Because I remember we changed the names last minute. We can't go with like the kind of like working titles from the original games. And
oh god, there's a bit where it kind of has a horn. It has a bit of a where it's just piano and it goes dun 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 da 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 da, and then it sort of builds up and builds up and builds up.
You've got a good voice there. We'll have to record that one day.
I actually am kind of a little bit of a musician. I used to be in a band. Like I was relating to what you're saying about your dad being in a bit of a failed band. I was on drums for a band a few times.
There's a story about that. I think that they were performing once, and I think it was somebody. It might have been somebody that was in the Animals. Came to see them, or somebody was associated with them somehow, and they came to see them play live once, and basically I think my dad was playing guitar, and they had words with the singer, and they says, "We really like you, but you've got to ditch the rest of them." It was one of them, one of them Spinal Tap scenarios, kind of thing. But it's the singer was great, the rest of them weren't.
But no, that I really did enjoy that track, and one of the topics that I actually wanted to touch upon actually kind of leads quite nicely into the stuff to do with the arrangement of the Dark Angel Symphony.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions I wanted to ask about that is that you worked with a gentleman, I believe the last name's Niles. I can't remember the first name.
Richard Niles, yeah.
Richard Niles, that's it. So when it came to working with him, how did you two communicate about his arrangements? Did you explain to him visually about what each track should represent? For example, like these tracks are set in Egypt and this track is Laura's supposed to be dead and so on and so forth.
I kind of I kept it very minimal because what I didn't want to do is kind of limit or bottleneck his creativity, because I know everything to me that he's done in the past. The reason why I kind of approached Richard Niles in the first place, it always turns to gold. I listen to his music, his own music and music that he's orchestrated, and I just think, there's things in that I could never do, which I really love, and I love how he kind of he'll play instruments off each other, and it's very clever what he does. I can't explain it, it's just like it resonates with me. So I kept kind of feedback minimal. Basically I just gave him the original track, the MIDI version, and then he took the MIDI version and turned it into what he wanted to turn it into, and he was quite thankful towards the end of the project. He says, "Thanks for just letting me loose on this, because, but I just said, well, I didn't want to tell you what to do, I don't want to tell a granny how to suck eggs, etc., and
exactly.
If something turned out bad and it wasn't the right way to go about stuff, I would have said something. But to be honest, I was the first time I heard his renditions, I was welling up, so, to me, that was good enough to kind of just say, well done, thank you.
That must have been a big moment for you in your life. It must have been a really cool person to work with.
It was very nerve-wracking. There's a track. I was absolutely shit myself when I went to meet him, because it's like meeting a hero almost, It's like this guy, to me, defined a lot of tracks which I grew up to in the 80s, and I'm still learning of tracks that he worked on. So I'll be listening to something. I'll be chatting to him. I said, do you know, I really love that intro to this. That's me. No, there was this track from 1988, 1987 that I used to listen to on my CD player when I first ever got one, and I used to put it on loop, the intro, because I just thought the intro it was just beautiful. I just thought, how does somebody think of that? How does somebody do that? And I remember mentioning that to him when I went to meet him in LA when we were kind of wrapped up the project before we went live. And he said, "Yeah, that's I did that." I was like, okay. And then he started telling us about how he worked with Take That, Kylie Minogue, Jamiroquai, maybe? No, that's another guy that's worked with Jamiroquai. That he played the trumpet on the Dark Angel Symphony. He's quite a regular with Jamiroquai. Used to tour with Jamiroquai and play on the original kind of like some Planet Earth albums and things like that. So the people that performed in the orchestra, especially the leads, they're all quite highly accomplished musicians, and they've got a lot of like credits behind, and this is who Richard's worked with the last 40 years. He literally chose the orchestra. He says, okay, I want so and so here, so and so there, and go there, and I don't know about arranging orchestra, so you know who you want to work with, you know who works with you. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking because, this guy I'd kind of admired for almost 40 years, and here he was suddenly like making us scones and coffee. It's like, okay. But yeah, I think he did a good job.
Well, yeah, it definitely does. I mean, the quality of that definitely comes through when you listen to the album. Touching upon another question now. Whilst Angel of Darkness sounds like an upgraded version of the original soundtrack, preserving the original atmosphere and style, if you will, Last Revelation and Chronicles do have a bit of a different style to them, especially Last Revelation. Could you explain what made you go in the particular direction that you did, since the style is quite different in many of those tracks to the original?
I think the Angel of Darkness, I don't think it's really... It's, to me, I mean, I hate blowing trumpets here, but I think it's already good enough. I
think a lot of people agree.
I don't think there's much more you can do with that to better it. And to be honest, I felt really awful on Richard Niles because I just thought, how do you better something? Or not necessarily better, how do you kind of reimagine something that's already kind of really kind of like, I don't like saying the word perfect, but because I can hear imperfections, so just thought I'd get that in there. But yeah. So, he pretty much, just like I said with all the tracks, just go with what you feel. If you feel it needs to be like this, it'd be like that. Go for it. If I disagree, we'll work it out. But,
So that's basically what happened with Last Revelation and Chronicles.
It's funny, because Chronicles, originally I was a little bit unsure. It was one of them ones I thought, I'm going to have to listen to this again and again and again. And then I kind of started thinking, no, actually, as the original one, that's probably where I was striving for. I think the Chronicles theme is quite different. Obviously, it's extended now, so that's it went from 30 seconds to a minute and a half or whatever. But that it doesn't sound as somber as the original one, but it's got something in there that is kind of what I was trying to strive for when I originally wrote it, and it just turned out as it did by chance, So I love the Angel of Darkness, like the Tina Gore cello.
Yes,
yes. Kind of transforms it in my opinion.
I did really like that part when listening to it. It sort of adds almost like a little bit of a what's the damn word? Folky charm to that particular segment. It's something you could imagine being played in a little pub somewhere or something, and then it goes back to being somber and
mind you, she wasn't happy with what he wrote because it was bloody hard to play.
Yes, that actually is something that I have in another question about Tina Gore's part in the Last Revelation theme. It was quite surprising that you didn't actually get to hear her play the Tomb Raider motif in that track. I was just going to ask a bit more about her role in that particular song and the idea behind it, because I heard that she, like you said, found the arrangement quite challenging to interpret. So that, Have you seen the video? Nicely. Have you seen the video of recording that bit?
I
have not recently revisited it, no. So you have to.
I'll link you that later. But there's a video of actually recording it. You can see like the fingers being kind of skinned because of all the playing. Bless her.
Wow.
But yeah, it's we did really well in the Kickstarter. We didn't do as great as we wanted to do. The original plan was, if we get to that goal, I'll do it all here. If we get to that goal, I can use an arranger. If we use that goal, we can use like celebrity kind of, and then get to that goal, we can use a full orchestra. Now we got to the first goal, and I was like, really, I've got to do also in my studio. And at that time, I wasn't feeling great, so I just thought, hang on, I don't know if I'm going to do this. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to invest to do this. I'm going to invest to do that. And I put a lot of money into getting it to the next levels myself. But unfortunately, the budget wasn't tight enough to kind of like, I wasn't flexible enough to get Tina and Julie especially involved in other tracks. I mean, ideally, we had originally penned up to play, on a quite like 5-10 tracks, and Julie, 3 to 5 tracks, but budget just wasn't enough to kind of do that, so we had to kind of cut back on a lot of things that we wanted. I mean, we would have loved an 80-piece orchestra in Lyndhurst, but that would have cost another 50 grand. So it's like,
well, God, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't love that if it didn't cost that much?
Exactly, yeah. So
I'd like that all the time, just to play accompany me throughout my day.
Yeah.
Have my own theme tune or something. Anyway, go on.
But yeah, I mean, I think we did well with what we got, and the fact that, I mean, it technically, with what we got on Kickstarter, it should have just been done here in the studio by me. And I just thought, I'm not feeling great at the minute, and that's not really how I wanted it to go. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. So that's why I invested a lot of money into it. And it was worth every penny. We kind of like made a 38-piece orchestra sound like a 60, 70-piece orchestra. That's down to Richard Niles, how he kind of works the instrumentation with other instruments, so he knows what works.
I was going to say, you could have fooled me easily.
Yeah, exactly.
Easily.
You just stick a lot of reverb on it and it sounds bigger.
That old classic trick.
It is, yeah. I think somebody commented on one of the YouTube videos the other day and says, wow, there's a lot of reverb on that. I'm thinking, yeah, I just wanted to make it sound bigger.
So going back now to the comment you made about the Chronicles track and how that sort of changed in atmosphere and tone. On one of the versions of that track, you've actually got Julie Elvin singing some lyrics over the track. And I quite like that because her voice in particular sounds quite dark and mysterious, so it suits the tone of the actual context of that game.
She's got a very cinematic voice, isn't she? Yeah.
Yes. So as that game is based on Lara being presumed dead, she sounds almost like she's in mourning, which I thought was quite appropriate. Who was it that came up with the idea to include vocals on that track?
Do you know this? I really can't remember. I do remember. Yeah, that's a bloody hell of a question, that, because I don't know if I can answer it. I might just blag it though. Me? No. I know we wanted Julie involved, and obviously it was going to involve vocals. I think initially it was going to be maybe some kind of oohs and ahs just to kind of add to the ambience. But I have no idea.
I've well and truly stumped you, haven't I?
Yeah. You've got it.
Game, set, and match, internet.
I have no idea. I know Richard Niles came up with the lyrics.
Okay. So he came up
with the lyrics and the melody. I think we just, at some point somewhere, said, let's make this into a vocal version.
Fair enough. I guess we'll have to leave that a mystery until further notice, until you might remember one day and all of a sudden you'll be drinking a cup of tea and go, I remember! And I know it is, I've got to tell Steve immediately.
Not everything all on the wind.
Since the most popular track for a lot of Tomb Raider fans is the Angel of Darkness theme, I just wanted to focus on it for a second. I just want to ask, personally, how would you describe the Angel of Darkness theme, and what was your idea behind its creation? And I guess we could also talk about how you then decided to take that and reinterpret it for the TDAS Symphony as well.
Yeah. The Angel of Darkness theme is based on the Tomb Raider 4 The Last Revelation theme. If you listen to the descending strings, that's kind of where the idea started from. Obviously, because we had the luxury of an orchestra, we could kind of write it in a way which we knew an orchestra would play it, and we wouldn't have to spend weeks, programming stuff to sound half real. So the idea was to make it sound big, reflective, and also quite dark. Obviously, the Dark Angel, everything had to have a dark undertone, so there's kind of like lots of big blaring horns going on there and big basses kind of doing their thing, But yeah, it was basically, let's take what was quite serene and quite relaxing of Tomb Raider 4 and turn it into some sort of dark monster with the nice ending.
Yeah, and it fits obviously into the overall theme of the Angel of Darkness, with it being a quite different and darker departure from the previous games.
Yes.
As well. So when you came to reinterpret that for the Angel Symphony, what was it you wanted to make sure that you preserved, or what was it you wanted to make sure you wanted to improve on that version?
I would have liked to improve the percussion. That was my I've always wanted to improve the percussion because the percussion was always far too high. I'm sure there's some multi-band compressors I could use these days that could help that. I might get around to one day and have a little flick through and just see if I can do something, But I don't think there was anything really I wanted to change on it. I just wanted it, equaled, or if I had no expectations for it because I didn't want to put anyone under any pressure. So it just had to sound nice. The one difference with the original Angel of Darkness and the TDAS version is the original Angel of Darkness, there was no set tempo. It was actually, you might notice that the tempo flows throughout Angel of Darkness. And that was down to the conductor's discrepancy. I remember him saying to me and Martin before we recorded, he says, look, am I able to kind of like create my own flow for these? Whereas the Angel of Darkness was MIDI click tracked, and it's hard to say. I don't know. I could never answer which version I prefer.
I bet you can't. I guess it's like picking your favourite child out of two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of them have got good points and they've got bad points, and some have got different good points, different bad points, but they're still equally loved.
Yeah. One does the homework on time, one does all the chores, but not the homework. It's tough.
Yeah.
Being a musical parent is tough.
Yes.
So one community question I've got here for you. It's from a user called Uncharted Raider. He wants to know, what was the hardest challenge of writing the music for Angel of Darkness for you?
What was the hardest challenge? I would probably say the time limitations we had. I can't remember like exact data, but I remember we had about 3 months to write it. And it was a challenge to get the orchestrator in, to go back and forth until we were happy. I don't remember being a challenge. I remember just being real fun, thinking, wow, a real orchestra's going to be playing this. So, I can do things without making it sound real, and, it would just sound real by the orchestra playing it, the articulation and the way it's kind of intended to be. So I think the limitation of 3 months is about the only thing I kind of remember being, a bit of a challenge. But it was, like I say, equally, it was really exciting to do that. You can just stream it off in your head overnight. I haven't got a clue how I did it. Just did it.
Pure magic, Pete. Pure magic.
Close my eyes. And
click your heels together 3 times.
3 times exactly, and then it's Abbey Road.
This question comes from Hi and Shimi, and they say that what musical piece from Angel of Darkness did you have the most fun coming up with and writing? And what song is the most memorable to you from that game personally?
It's got to be Le Serpent Rouge, aka Surrounded by Green.
I had a feeling that you would say that. I did have a feeling.
I think for years, because I've also liked electronic music and synthesizers, this, that, and the other, and dance music. And I think for years I was just heavily involved with orchestral music. So you go back to when I first started there in 1998. I was working on Hurdy-Gurdy, so that was kind of Disney-fied. And then there's Tomb Raider, which is Tomb Raider 4, Tomb Raider 5, Tomb 6, which is all orchestral. And I think having the opportunity to write something that I wanted to be cheesy, and just like tongue in cheek almost,
yes,
and I remember
Europop.
writing, and I was just listening to old like 90s like dance tracks, and I thought, right, okay, I want it to sound like as shit as that. No, so I shouldn't say that. It was just I had fun doing it because it was all tongue in cheek, and it was a complete break from the norm. So.
Yeah, and the sound sample from it, there's an interesting story I've heard behind that. But would you like to sort of remind or let our audience know what that could be?
Is this where Surrounded by Green came from? Yeah. There was a friend of mine left a voice message on my phone. I remember him calling Michael Jordan. Hey, Michael, if you're watching. Otherwise known as MC Talking Bollocks. I remember the phone call coming through, but I was busy doing something at the time, so I thought I'll give him a call later. But he left a voice message. So I listened to the voice message later, and I was like, Jesus, he's pissed. And so I just thought, I'll when I got back to the studio's car, I got a microphone, put it next to the phone on speakerphone, record it, and just laid it on top of the track, And then,
what was he talking about? What was he mumbling about to do with Green? Was he like a football match or something?
We still don't even really know, if I'm being honest. Like he can't even remember the phone call.
I'm not surprised. He was that bladdered.
He was. Yeah, the way he talks is hilarious. I think it's out there on YouTube somewhere. I think Ash might have threw it up on there.
Quite possibly, yes. I'll have to link it in the video.
But yeah, I mean, he was talking about the England. He must have been watching a rugby match. It was the England-Ireland rugby match, and he was, he's a big Irish fan. And they lost, and he was just drowning his sorrows, So, and then he went on about being surrounded by green, and that's where that came from. I've got no idea what he means by that, but yeah, fair enough. There you go.
Maybe he was talking about the football pitch, and he just passed out or something, and he was just looking at his surroundings, thinking, "Oh, I'm surrounded by green."
Apparently, he had a potato in his left hand. And a big stupid Guinness hat on his head. But if you hear the lyrics, you'll know what's going on.
Right. That's amazing. So I have one here that's a bit of an interesting one. I don't know how well you can answer this one, actually. But we've got a member called DJ Full, who's asking, what was any work started on your and Martin Iverson's end for the Cut Castle Krieger chapter of Angel of Darkness at all?
I can't answer that one. I have no idea. A lot of the music was written without really playing the game. It got to a certain state, and we recorded the music a year before it came out, and a lot of changes happened after we recorded the music. Normally you record the music right at the end, but we recorded the music with the intent of it being out in a couple of months after that. So we never really got to see a great deal. With previous tunes, we did, yeah, but with this one, we didn't really get to see a great deal of the game evolving. So we just we wrote the music with the intention of it's got to sound like this. It's got a lot of the Angel of Darkness music is like kind of a reimagination.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah,
multi-purpose
it works.
Tracks,
it's almost a tried and tested, way of working. So we kind of know that it's not groundbreaking, it's not fresh, it's not new, but it has, it's Tomb Raider. It's going to sound in a particular way, which is, so we didn't have to be too particular with making sure it worked with the visuals. But
so what you're saying, it could have been easily done that what you were working on, if that particular part of the game was still in there, you could just repurpose stuff to fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, a lot of the cutscenes and FMVs came after we wrote the music, and quite bizarrely, this still bamboozles me, but when I got the cutscenes, I would just drop the music on top, and for some reason it just worked. Do you know what I mean? It's like the scene would change, and then the music, the bar would change and the music, and I'd be, hang on.
How the hell?
Is this really happening? Am I having some sort of trip here? So, don't get us wrong, I had to make some movements,
obviously nothing that perfect, but that's just an amazing coincidence that you've been able to just pop that in there. That's the dream for any editor. Just literally just drop the music in and it just fits around what you've edited. That's crazy.
It is. I mean, to be honest, I've noticed you never have to be so tight with kind of synchronizing things. I've noticed when we get the Spanish or the Italian versions, we drop the different languages in line with the English, mute the English and play the Spanish, and it just works. I mean, they do kind of make sure it's kind of in the same kind of like tone and timing as the original, but sometimes it just works. It's like the lip sync was done in Spanish. It's
yeah, that was all the voiceover files you're referring to there. Yeah. Okay. Here we've got another community question from Blue Ferret Boy, or Ferret, it might be. Out of all the Tomb Raider games that you have worked on, what musical piece was the hardest one for you to make?
Ooh. I'm gonna say the Paris intro. That was never right. The MIDI version was kind of half right, and the orchestral version was half right. And
so with their powers combined, they could kind of make something
what happened
fully right.
I couldn't use that version. I couldn't use that version. So what I did was I put them both together, and it kind of like it kind of got 75% of there. So it was better to have them both together than the MIDI version with the orchestral version. That's how it ended up. But I was also just like, that could have been orchestrated a hell of a lot better, and on TS it was, so
yeah. There's a chance to right the wrongs of the past there, I guess, with TDAS.
I think so. Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a wrong righted. Is that bad, Geordie?
No, wrong rated. It's fine.
I might write an album called Wrong Righted.
Yeah, go for it. I'd listen to it. I'd buy that. I'll buy it on fucking vinyl, mate. Play it on repeat. One of the segments I wanted to talk about was Angel Studios. I just wanted to ask a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Now that I have heard the day before that the actual symphony recordings were dramatic, the actual day before the actual date of recording was quite a bit of a dramatic time for you guys. It was the hottest day in the UK. Many trains and planes and automobiles were cancelled or delayed due to various things. Murty's trains were stuck for hours, and Jen Millward apparently had to cancel due to health issues. Could you share a bit about your perspective on the day? It sounds like it was an extremely tough one.
It was. From the Saturday, because was it the Friday we recorded it? Yeah, it was the Friday we recorded at Angel, but we had been there the week before, because on the Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Wednesday, I think we recorded some of the soloists. So we recorded like the drums on the Saturday and Sunday at another studio called Master Chord. We also record like saxophone, guitar, bass, at Master Chord as well, and some vocals at a studio called, oh God, I can't remember the name, sorry. But then, yeah, we had the Angel Studios preparing for it, getting everyone coming in the flights at the right time, getting stuff printed, this and that. That was just like, it was just an overpowered conveyor belt, that was very hard to kind of keep on. But it was, because you were excited about it, it was thriving, it was very stressful, very demanding, but because it was exciting, it helped balance it. But yeah, Richard Niles, he got really sick.
I heard
on the Wednesday, and he couldn't come to the vocal session, so he directed all that via Skype.
Oh, really?
By typing, because he couldn't speak because he was losing his voice. He had laryngitis. I'm not sure exactly what he had, but he was very poorly.
Oh no!
And I remember on the Thursday, I think it was Thursday was the first day we had off, but there was people coming in from different parts of the world that we had a meet and greet and make sure they were hoteled, etc., etc. But I remember Richard says, "Can you bring me some necessities like bread, milk, whatever, some painkillers, etc., etc." So I remember I walked to a shop nearby, got some essentials in 2 carrier bags in 40 degrees, from the hotel to the shop was quite enough. And then he was about 2 miles from where I was. So I thought I'll walk, I need the exercise. And as I got about a mile long, the bloody bag snapped. Everything fell out. So I had to pick it all up, have it in my arms like that. And I walked for the last 1.5 miles with these in my arms. And then seriously, I must have lost a stone in sweat. I just thought, how did I manage that? And obviously it helped Richard greatly, because I was really worried that he wasn't going to turn up at the studio on the Friday, but he did. I mean, he was really ill still, and he did a grand job. He switched off his illness and just continued with his persona, and made sure the orchestra worked well, which was, I commend him for that. But yeah, it was the hotel we were staying as well didn't have air conditioning either.
Of course, our country's never prepared for a heat wave, and we always seem to get them.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's strange. When I went to Montreal a few years ago, it's like England. You have a bit of snow, an inch of snow, and the world England
just stops.
But in Montreal, it's literally above me. One day it wasn't, and the next day it was like 7 foot. But the world, Montreal kept on doing its thing. I was like, we need to take a leaf out of their book.
Yeah, just a little bit, especially when it comes to the trains in our country as well.
Yeah,
definitely need to take a leaf out of other places' books. But I digress. So, how did you personally feel when you woke up on the day of recording for the symphony? What was going through your mind?
I think I was just buzzing. Nervous, don't get us wrong, I would have been very nervous, because I was thinking, have we got everything? Is Richard going to be there? Is Richard going to call and say he can't make it? What do we do? How do we replace him? Is there anyone we can replace him with? Or we're going to lose like 40 grand of studio time, orchestra time. So there was obviously all them kind of things going through my mind, but I can't remember it being overly stressful. I just remember it being like, this is the day, it's just going to be
exciting time.
Yeah. I mean, I was going through a bit of was going through quite a bit of illness at the time. I was just getting over getting over Bell's palsy. So my face,
I had heard about
my
that,
face was like, I mean, you can see on the videos back then. I look at them, I laugh at them now, and I think, God, look at the state of me, you know. But I didn't know what was kind of wrong with this. When I came back from Knots last year, I got diabetes and a couple of other things, you know, and that's what had been going on with this. I had the Bell's palsy, and then the other medication I was on kind of we're thinking might have caused the other stuff. So I was in a kind of like, I needed to sit down kind of situation most of the time, because I remember walking around Angel Studios, and it's quite a maze of stairs and corridors, and I remember thinking, whoa, I'm going to fall down here if I don't kind of keep a tight grip on that, you know. But yeah, it was a great day. It was actually, again, magical just watching the orchestra do the thing, you know. I really
dream
enjoyed
come
that.
true for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It'd been, like 16 years since I'd done it before that, so it was the second time I'd ever had use of a real orchestra. So
yeah, well, that must have been an amazing feeling, just walking into a big studio full of people just ready to sort of like be at your command almost, and be like, make music for me. They would do it.
There's this the harpist Skylar. She would go in a room on her own to the side of the control room, outside of the main room. So I felt a bit sorry for her, but obviously that's the way harpists work, you know. But bless her, she was a very good harpist as well.
Yeah, and you've always been open about your health and your health well-being as well, with obviously on the Kickstarter pages as well as online in general, face-to-face with me now. One thing I wanted to just mention is that Tina told me that when she asked you to sign a poster for her at the end of the day, she noticed she could barely write your name, and it took you about 30 seconds to just write Peter. It sounds like you had some real health issues during the project, and you were put through the ringer. And like you said before, just now, you suffered with Bell's palsy. But I just wanted to ask, how are you coping currently with your health and well-being, and how does it affect you right now when you're obviously going to work and just doing your day-to-day stuff? How is it for you?
It's difficult because I have very little energy every day. It's I have been signed on the sick for 4 months, so I'm not doing any physical work. I'm just trying to rest and recuperate, I suppose. To cut a long story short, when I took a job in Nottingham last year, and I was feeling quite bad when I started. I didn't feel great when I started, but I just assumed getting away from the four walls and having a fresh start would kind of just help things progress. But they actually got progressively worse. Around June or July, I just remember thinking that this is not right, and it's not fair on the company I work for. The people that I work with. It's like I can't operate on 4 cylinders. I was barely operating on 1 cylinder, never mind 4. So I just made a decision that I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to go and get my health checked out. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. I just assumed I had pneumonia, which had came up in a random X-ray.
Yes.
So when I came back, I went to the doctors after doing a bit of Googling, as was mentioned earlier. And it came up that I have not pneumonia, diabetes. So like, okay. So I went to the doctors, checked, and I was right through the roof. I was like,
was it type 1 or type 2?
Type 2. So it's
type 2.
Stop eating fatty takeaways, Peter Connelly.
No cakes for you.
No more KFCs.
Like, no more cake diabetes. Yes.
Exactly. Well, it's like I had that, but then they said, "Oh, your pneumonia's come back. You've got it in a different place now. You've also got liver abnormality. You've got low vitamin D. You've got B12 abnormality." So I had a lot of things going on which I needed to deal with. But going back to speaking with Tina as well, when I was doing the writing, I had a stint about 2 years ago where I couldn't type. I couldn't play the piano. And typing an email, it would be like I was like writing at the wrong side of the keyboard. So I was trying to type my name, and it was just coming out completely wrong, And like if I write an email like, "Yeah, this is Peter Connelly," it would take us 20 minutes to do that. The doctors originally thought that was labyrinthitis or vertigo, because I used to get dizzy quite a lot, and I used to fall over quite a lot.
Okay.
Hence having to sit down a lot in Angel Studios because I feel quite dizzy. The medication they given for that never fixed it. And as it turned out, when I got checked for diabetes and that, it had been that all along.
Oh no! Yeah.
So everything that had been going, I just hadn't been checked out for years, basically.
Well, it's a good job now you've actually gotten that sorted in a way.
So yeah, it's sorted now. Yeah, I mean,
the course.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was never going to be able to write again. It was pretty intense, Have I gone off?
Well, yeah. Oh no, you're still here.
Oh, yeah.
You're just easy pointing at the screen now. Yeah.
It was quite shocking. I just thought, I've lost, something I can't write. I can't play. I mean, I play songs that I know, and I'd play them probably better than I used to play them, actually. But, so it was quite worrying time, and that was all going on during TDAS. But obviously now the doctors, it's a long story, but yeah, the doctors are kind of on it. So
well, that's good.
And we've got some possible answers, which we're busy looking into at the minute. So if we can kind of make sure that's as what we think it is, I think I'll probably be back to where I was before 2018, give or take.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed, man. I mean, I think I can speak on behalf of me and my community and the rest of the Tomb Raider community that we wish you all the best, especially with your health.
Thank you very much, yeah.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
And of course, being ill, I do like sympathy, so it's that's all. It's man flu, really.
Of course, yeah. Did you ever see those mocked up fake man flu pills that you could get people?
No.
No, I can't remember if you can get them on Amazon still, but they're just like a black pill jar, and it's got like a warning triangle on it, and it says man flu pills. I
need some of them.
Do you know what? I'll buy some and I'll send them to you.
Do that. That'll be brilliant.
Yeah. I will. Yeah. Of course.
And I'll show it to my family. Go, you see, it's real.
Yeah. A doctor told me to take these. I feel right better. I can have cake now and everything. It must have been quite an experience to, like you say, enter a studio for the first time, 16 years?
Yeah.
And hear the first track being played. How did it make you feel at the time? Did it make you feel and think back to your Abbey Road sessions when you made Angel of Darkness and got that recorded?
It did, yeah. There was very similar feelings. It was hair standing on the end kind of feeling. It's the thing that's always kind of stuck in my mind, and this is valid for Angel of Darkness and Dark Angel Symphony, is when the musicians come in and they're getting the music in front of them. They're kind of just like, they want to warm up, they want to get tuned up and practice and just kind of get to where they need to be. On both Angel of Darkness and TDAS, what they did was they would just randomly take a bit of music out, and they'd all, get all 40 or 80 of them would get something random and just play little lines, and you'd be thinking, I recognise that. Oh, I know what it is. It's my music. So you'd have from different angles.
That's me.
You'd hear like the Angel of Darkness, like the violin run or something, and then you'd hear like the percussion on, Dancer Lux Veritatis, and it's all kind of combined into one as they're kind of warming up and trying to tune up, And I always remember that's such a beautiful feeling. Hearing something that you've done being performed by a live musician for the first time, there's just something magical about it. I mean, I mentioned in a recent recording, when the London Symphony Orchestra played the third take of Angel of Darkness theme, I actually went from the control room into the main room where they were performing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, do you know what it is? They could have played a load of shite and it would have sounded great. It's just, there was just something about being in this big hall with a lovely kind of room acoustics and an 83-piece orchestra playing a piece of music, quite dynamically, and hearing it. You can't transfer that to a CD or a record or MP3,
no.
Or even a live performance. If you're sitting like 10 rows back in a live performance, just actually be pretty much where the conductor is and hearing it right in front of you. That's irreplaceable.
I could tell by the beaming smile on your face that you do seem to have a lot of fond memories, and that it must have made you feel so amazing.
It was, yeah.
To be.
It was similar. That's, I mean, a lot of time I spent the time in the control room, with the recording engineer, etc., etc. But a few times I did go into the room, but I do get scared going into the room because you literally have to get rid of all your coughs, your sneezes, and sit still, because if they do a beautiful performance and you go, that's it, it's game over, I'd have to do it again,
Yeah, so that would just put me on so much of an edge if I was to do that, because any kind of like chair creak or any kind of like knuckle crack or fart or whatever happens,
exactly, yeah. It
sort of leak
happens,
out.
I mean, I don't know if you can hear
just be picked up in crystal clear quality as well.
I know. I don't know if you ever heard the Angel of Darkness theme. About I always say about 1:25, but I think it's about 1 minute 23 in. You can hear somebody like just move the chair on the butt.
I've never heard that. No, not at all. I'm going to have to get some headphones and just crank them up now and see if I can hear
it's
that.
Around 1:23. It first came to my kind of attention. I never noticed it until somebody brought it up, but it was one of the games testers from IDOS.
Right.
Put in the database, it said there's a door opening at 1 minute 23. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Door open? You're kind of like, you're going to have to listen now. So I stuck the headphones on, turned up quite loud. I'm like, that's somebody moving about in a chair.
It wasn't you or anything, was it? It was like going through a door and it was like, Peter.
It wasn't me, thankfully, this time. No, that's what I mean. It's like I'm going into the room on TDAS. I was just thinking, I'm going to have to stand here with my hands on my laps like that, get comfortable and just wait until it's finished. And I thought, if I need to sneeze, I can't.
And this is on the original version of the Angel Darkness track, isn't it?
The original version, yeah.
So I'm gonna have to get like anyone who is watching this, then please just confirm that they're able to hear this in the chat as well, because that would just be incredible if we can get people to hear this.
I love little Easter eggs like that. Yeah, I love the little things.
I do love little tidbits like that. I do love them. I love them. One more question I just wanted to ask about Angel Studios.
Yeah, sure.
Before we move on to the next topic, was going to be I can imagine working on a project like this, your mind must have been in about 1,000 different places at once. Did you ever find it a challenge to stay focused? What steps did you take to remedy any kind of nerves and anxiety with the projects and recording?
I just think I put a trust in people. A lot of the musicians and people involved in the recording and orchestration, obviously Richard Niles and stuff, are all very kind of accomplished and experienced. So, putting my trust in them, I knew they wouldn't let me down. That they know what they're doing. They know more than me. It's like I pretty much just accepted. If he said I need this musician, that musician, the best, on this day or that date, this studio, and that's in that version of the studio, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to argue with that. You know better than me. So I felt quite relaxed knowing that it was in good hands.
Having a team of people behind you like that must have been an absolute godsend, I must admit. To be able to take out weight off your shoulders.
It was great like that. I mean, ideally, I would have loved somebody who would have I really should do this, but it would be nice to have somebody like with quite a high musical mind who would have followed the music. That would have, kind of just done a double on it. But I mean, Ronan Fullen, who was the recording engineer at Angel, he wasn't originally going to be the recording engineer. We were going to use kind of somebody who works at Angel. It comes in with the price kind of thing. But when we were working at Mastercard Studios, which it's like literally I want to live there. It's like my ideal studio, If I get back into working in studios, that's where I kind of want to be. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but it's like I think it should be called Ninja Studios, but that's just there's a reason behind that, but I won't go into it.
Brilliant.
But that's where we're recording the drums and the saxophone and the guitar and the bass kind of thing. All the soloists, that's where we kind of set all that up and recorded that. And the guy who was engineering there, Ronan Fullen, I just remember he was so bloody good at what he did. He just cracked on with stuff, and he was very meticulous, and I love that word, meticulous. Ash hates it, but I love it. And I remember saying to him, like in the middle of the week, I just says, "You're engineering on Friday." So he was like, "Oh God, okay." And thankfully, before he was at Mastercard, he'd been at Angel Studios for 8 years, so he knows the place. He knows the setup. So I just said, there's no one else going to be doing this. You are. Sorry for the pressure, but that's the game. But he did,
Excellent. I just realised that there's a couple of questions to do with the arrangement that I actually missed out, which I want to come back to.
Sure,
do you mind if I do that? One of the ones I wanted to mention was I personally love the saxophone in Red Alert. Since that level was supposed to be set in New York, I thought sax, to me, is a very New York instrument, and so it fits. And Angel Darkness, you had Welcome to Paris, and there's a little bit of sax at the end of it, which sounds very film noirish. Yes, sort of noir tone to it, which is quite cool. But then there are tracks that come up in the Egypt sections, like the Scarab Puzzle, which was certainly an interesting surprise.
Yeah.
What was your reasoning behind it? Because it seems like the saxophone is quite the prominent instrument throughout the entire symphony.
Yeah. Again, it was just leaving. I'm gonna submit a pun here, because it was literally leaving Richard Niles to his own devices, and the Left in Mind devices is obviously the track that he worked on by the Pet Shop Boys. So there's the pun.
Very clever. Very clever.
Crap dad joke, but it's he's very influenced by jazz. So I know what he does is going to have a lot of jazz influence in there.
It definitely sounds it. I like it. It's just a big departure from the original mood.
It is. Now, there's a bit of reasoning behind that, obviously, because, I left Richard to do what he wanted to do, kind of thing. And I think the saxophone is a little bit neglected these days, but also Curtis Trent, his favourite music's jazz music, so there's that connection there.
Brilliant.
So there you go. So
it's your way of interweaving him back into the series by having him go through musically.
Yeah.
Be represented musically.
It just made sense.
Very clever.
Yeah. He loves jazz, so it would have been wrong not to include the saxophone in there somewhere in some jazz influences.
Fair enough. And to me, I do think it sounds really nice. It's just obviously going from the original to that. A lot of people can hear there's a massive departure from the mood. So it is its own beast in a lot of ways.
I think some of them did warrant that. I mean, like the End of Darkness theme itself, I don't think it really warranted too much of a departure. Some of the tracks did, because what I didn't want to do was do a like for like, but with an orchestra. Yes. I just thought if I'm going to do this, they need to be identifiable as their own tracks. To be honest, I give Richard pretty much a very minimal brief. It was like, do what you want. It must sound. listen to what's prominent in the original tracks. We must kind of hold on to the authenticity of Tomb Raider, and without them being too different, there must be some sort of slight departure between the original and the new one without it being too complicated. I mean, there's a couple of tracks in there people went, where's that from? But I think when they look at it, they realise it's from there,
Yeah. It's interesting that if you keep a keen ear to it, you can sort of see how elements of Lost Revelation have interwoven with Angel Darkness and vice versa, and it's very cohesive, the vision. I must say, for the suite. Very commendable effort from everyone who has been involved with it, because it's almost like, for this particular reimagining, to me, would you say it's actually been written more as an album than an actual soundtrack?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, it's not all the tracks from the games. It's just the kind of ones that I thought were prominent or would be good ones to kind of revisit. But yeah, it was designed as an album. It's its own entity. It is obviously a reimagination, and it is a copy of tracks which already exist. But it's like the Pete Tong Manchester Orchestra versions of his classics kind of thing. Well, it's not like that. But you know what I mean. It's like you probably can't dance to some of them orchestra versions, and you could dance to the original ones in the 90s. But it's. You can understand where he's coming from, and that's kind of how I wanted to be with Dark Angel.
I must admit, with the Scarab Puzzle one, I think you even liked and retweeted this, where I basically I got Lara playing a saxophone from Fortnite and basically overlaid that over part from The Last Revelation and her dancing along to it. And weirdly enough, I just literally dragged and dropped that. I had to do no retiming at all with the audio, and it just fit. She just happened to bop at the right times to fit in with it.
Audio just fits.
It just works. But not all the time. But when it does work, it just works.
When it works right, yeah.
Exactly. Now, with some of the reimagined tracks, you decided to embellish them and extend them beyond their original times.
Yeah.
When it came to the reimagined tracks, they were pretty much the same lengths as the original. What was it that made you decide to stick so closely to those original lengths?
Primarily, I hate long tracks. I hate it when a track's like 8 minutes, 10 minutes. It's just like, I get bored after a minute. I want to kind of move on, you know what I mean? It's like, when I'm driving in the car and I hear the first minute of a track and then skip to the next, it annoys people. But I don't know. I think some of them, there's another reason as well, is because budget.
I had a feeling that you'd probably say that.
Ideally, I probably would have wanted the tracks to be between 2 and 3 minutes long, but that would have meant a bigger stake for Richard Niles, because we were charged per minute. So
were you now? Okay.
Not per minute of doing it, per minute of the song. So for every minute of the song, you get a certain price. You know, it's not like
he's on a good wage, isn't he?
I know, to get into
that sector. Yeah, right. Exactly.
That was, to be honest, that's actually probably primarily. I don't like long tracks. It's probably why they weren't so long in the game as well. I get bored after so long, you know. And if it needs to be long, it needs to be long. But if you can get away with it being 30 seconds to a minute. I don't know. Maybe that's a wrong out to have. I don't know, but it's just how I am. I get bored after a minute.
That's fine.
But there are some tracks which, I mean, the Chronicles, for instance, that's when from the reason that was 30 seconds originally, was because in Chronicles the sequences, the flyby sequences, are all 30 seconds. So I didn't do it one long score or 2 minute score. I did 30 seconds for the first flyby, 30 seconds. And even though there was that kick of a bit of a fuss with certain people, I think it kind of worked. You know, it could give it that kind of nostalgia and a little hint of, I don't know, maybe that's just my excuse of getting around it. But I mean, I remember when I wrote it, I remember thinking I should really write a longer version of it and replace it with all the 4 30-second tracks and making it a 2 minute track. But then time was against me, so I didn't do that. But with the Dark Angel Symphony, that was probably number one priority. I want to get that one extended because I've been promising myself and many other people over the years that it will get extended. And I think it's went to about 1 minute and 38 now. Don't quote me on that.
No, I've actually got Spotify open, so I can actually tell you if you're interested.
31 seconds.
Let me just go to the album. So this is the Chronicles theme. So the Chronicles theme here I've got as 1 minute 40.
Oh,
according to the runtime on Spotify. Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. And then you've got the one with the singing at the end, which
should be the same one.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was called now. How bad is that? She Will Live On Forever?
She Will Live On, yep.
Yeah, exactly the same runtime.
The reason it's the same length is it's the same track, but with vocals on.
Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have thunk that?
Who'd have thunk? That would have been a mystery forever unless you had said that. Thank you, Pete, for busting that myth. Confirmed.
Myth-buster, Pete.
If there was one track that you could go back, and I guess this could apply to the original soundtracks as well for the other games, go back and extend. If you had the dream ideal scenario of unlimited resources and money and funding, what track would you choose and why?
You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Dance the Lux Veritatis.
I had a feeling.
I love the version of T-Dance. I love the version. I love both. I hated the Angel Darkness version. Now I like it, but I like the Dark Angel Symphony version better. But I still think I could make that what's going on up there. I can't always articulate what I want. Ask Ash, but I know when I see or hear it that it's right. You know what I mean? It might be right in my eyes, but it might be everyone else might hate it. The one thing I did worry about was when I realised that everybody loved Lux Veritatis, Dance Lux Veritatis. I thought, God, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to like it. Everyone's going to hate it. So it's just one of them things. Music's so subjective. You just got to do what you want to do, how you want to do it, and hope for the best. I suppose that's what you could. You know, somebody actually got in touch with us on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and says, I really like what you've done with the Chronicles theme, but could you not do it a bit more synthy? And I thought, well, yeah, I could do. Give us $5,000, I'll do it for you. I haven't got $5,000.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, give me the cash and I can do anything. If
everyone had an opinion on anything that anyone's ever written, there'd be probably none that have the same opinion.
Yeah. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I like. That's a saying I really do like. It's very true. It's very true. But you were saying the Dance of the Lux Veritatis then would be your pick.
That'd be the one. Yeah, it's there. It's getting there. You know what I mean? There's just certain things that I know aren't there. I mean, one of the big problems I had originally with it was the percussion. I keep going back to that. It was just mic'd too loud. It was mixed too loud. There was a couple of wrong orchestrations in the percussion as well. The original Dance Little Veritatis, the instruments you hear aren't the instruments that they were supposed to be. So it was a bit of a
really?
Oh, yeah.
Right. What were they supposed to be then? Do you know?
The bit where you hear the piatti, the cymbals, in that, they were supposed to be wood blocks.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That would have completely changed it, I think.
It would have, yeah. I think now if I'd done that, people would go, what you doing? You know what I mean? But if you've heard something, your mind is heard
amplifies it.
Yeah. So, and that's how it is when you hear a cover version. It's like, oh, I don't like that version. Oh, actually, I'm starting to like that version now. Because your mind, it's like me, I'm a big fan of Steve Coogan. I loved Alan Partridge. Well, I love Alan Partridge. And I watched another Saxondale. I watched Saxondale. It was like, God, this is the first thing he's done that I kind of like wanted to watch after Alan Partridge. And to me, Alan Partridge is the real person. Steve Coogan's fiction. And I watched Saxondale, and I just couldn't bring myself to like it because I kept comparing him to Alan Partridge. But the more I watched it, the more I separated the two characters, the more I enjoyed it. So that's how it kind of is with covers and music, you know.
You should listen to the metal version of the Dance of the Lucifer's
Artist.
I heard it that Norse chick.
Yeah.
That Norse chick has made. It's amazing. It's
mad that somebody actually does it. It's like somebody goes out of the way and does it and enjoys doing it. It's like, wow, you know, that must be quite incredible to you to see people like reinterpreting your work in like either for like memes or for just actual cover versions and stuff. It must be. How do you feel about that? Whenever you see them? I don't think I can process it well because it's like, wow, somebody did that. It's like great. It's like most of the time it's a lot better than what I've ever done, you know. And it's like, I mean, it's not a competition thing, but I just think, wow, someone's actually liked that enough to be able to make it their own. You know, and it's like it's such an honor. You know, it's like I totally respect that. You know, it's like wow, thank you.
That leads quite nice into a community question from a user called Tenwin, who asks, what community creation regarding the Angel of the Darkness or Tomb Raider as a whole have you found to be the most memorable or amusing? Anything from memes to comics or anything else in between?
There's a Tomb Raider music medley. I think it might be Tomb Raider 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe I don't know which episodes they are, but there's a medley anyway. And I think Angel of Darkness is one of them. But I remember hearing it and thinking, wow, that is so beautifully performed and executed. It's just like, you know, there's real talent involved in that. And it's because I disconnected myself from Tomb Raider for quite a while. I didn't really kind of follow a lot of stuff that was going on. I'm only kind of just catching up at the minute. But the video I kind of remember, it was somebody playing on the piano on the beach. And
all right.
Do you know? Does that ring any bells or?
Not for me personally, but I think I am going to have to do some digging about that.
Yeah,
after this.
It's really good. I mean, I remember watching it and thinking, wow, somebody's went out of the way again to do this. You know, wanted to do this and done an absolutely superb job.
You don't happen to remember anything to do with the name or what they look like, this person, or?
No, but I should. I feel awful.
Maybe come back to it after this interview. We've got one here by a user called Vanilla. Was the music of Angel of Darkness affected by any of the crunch and issues the rest of the game's development endured? And do you have any kind of like funny stories that you can recall whilst working on any of the games that you did?
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, we had the time limit for write the music in 3 months, but obviously because that was going to be recorded, you know, you can't continue writing whilst an orchestra performing it, so that had to be done, signed, sealed, and delivered. Not just what we wrote, what the orchestra wrote, we had to kind of go back and forth and make sure everything was kind of ready, you know, in notation for that time. That was the only kind of crunch I remember. Angel of Darkness, I mean, we worked ridiculous hours, you know, but that was kind of like the norm back in the day. So you'd work like 10 in the morning until 2 in the morning, and you know, sometimes you would sleep in the office and do a 3-day.
I've heard the stories about people sleeping in cupboards at Core Design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember sleeping under my desk once. I remember Adrian and Jeremy used to bring people from IDOS or some visitors around every so often. And I could hear him walking down the corridor when I was lying under the desk. You know, he couldn't see from where I was because I was hiding behind the computer quite towards the back. But he came in, he went, "Oh, this is the music room," and Pete's not here. And I remember sitting thinking, "Don't move." But basically, yeah, you just catch up with the Zeds when you can. Everyone was a good laugh, they say the camaraderie of co-design. Everyone just seemed to be friends, Don't get us wrong, people had the moments, but when you work in the times you do, with the stress levels that can happen, you do have your moments. But I used to like doing my own Foley. So when I was doing sound effects and FMV work, I would always have a microphone or two set up. So if I needed to record something, that was just kind of in my head there, and then I could hit a switch and away it would go. And I think it was Angel of Darkness. There's a cutscene sequence where she comes out of a pool, out of water, and she undresses and dresses into a wetsuit.
Wetsuit. Yes.
And that's me stripping off.
Yes, I've heard this before. Yes, it was your zipper on your jeans, wasn't it, or something?
It was. I actually took my shirt. I made all the noises on my jacket. I used the zipper on my belt buckle, and I pulled my pants down. Sorry.
That is incredible, because I remember being told. I think Ash told, or Tina told me this before, but hearing it coming from you is just even better.
No, there's also a Lucasade advert. That was, and at the end of the advert, she goes like that. Now I remember getting one of the Lara models to come in, or Lara actresses to come in to do.
Who was that?
Jude Gibbons. I think I recorded about 26, 30 different kind of kisses, and I'm, you do 30, 25, 30, and you think there's going to be one in there that's usable. It's the same with anything, you do clap your hands, you do 30 claps, and one of them's sometimes usable. And she had to go, and I remember I thought, I'll get one off that, don't worry about it. And I went through them all, and there weren't enough, there just wasn't enough kind of a bottom end in there.
It didn't have that peak touch.
It didn't have that peak touch, so I got behind the mic and did a load myself, and that's the one we used.
So you worked on the adverts then, did you?
Didn't,
or was it just
specifically work on the adverts? We didn't kind of do all the sound design and music stuff, but they did want the kiss of Lara that they could use.
Right. You got the kiss of Pete instead.
So the kiss at the end, it's me, So.
That's incredible. One at a time, please. All right, so let's move on to your post Tomb Raider career. So recently the community has been able to finally experience some of the cancelled core design Tomb Raider anniversary game.
Yes.
How far along into that particular project were you whilst you were working on it before it got shelved?
I left before it got shelved. After Angel of Darkness, a lot of politics went on. You know most of the story. And we started getting management in from IDOS, and then there was the sale. SCI and SCI sold core design to Rebellion, etc., etc. Now I kind of left before all of that happened, but the last thing I was doing before I left was some kind of preliminary sound design work for Anniversary. So I was kind of putting FMVs together, cutscenes together, putting some test sound effects in the game, editor levels, that kind of thing. So it was quite early on, even though, it was kind of up and working properly. I remember going to see one of the programmers once to talk about something, I can't remember what it was, but they had actually started using the free running animations on Lara in one of the tombs. So she was jumping off wall to wall, which was great. I mean, if they could have left that in, that would have been a hell of an Easter egg. But, I pretty much left before anything really happened with that. So there's not a great deal for me to say on that one.
What game post Tomb Raider would you say was the most fun to compose for, and you found the most musically challenging?
I really liked. I liked working on Watch Dogs. It was quite a big team. Obviously, a lot of it was, the majority of it was done in Montreal, but they used the Newcastle Ubisoft, which was Reflections. So they're called Ubisoft Reflections. They teamed up with them to do some extra missions, some side missions which required, but I was mostly contracted to do sound design work, but it became quite apparent that some of the bits that we were working on needed music in, so I kind of put my hand up and says, I'll do it. It was the first time since Angel of Darkness that I'd actually written any music for a game that I can remember anyway. No, sorry, it was one of the first tracks I I'd written that was going to be for something pretty big, you know. Yeah, I wrote an orchestral piece. Obviously, not a real orchestra. It was all done kind of with libraries and stuff. But there was one of the side missions was called Invasion. I think it was spelled NVZN or something. And it was not VR, AR. It was an AR game. I remember writing the music for that, and I just kind of wanted. I did a version 2 actually, which hasn't been released. I plan on doing a version 3 for it because I'm always changing things, as you know. But it was quite interesting to do because it seemed, you know, it was the first time in a long time I'd actually kind of composed to visuals. And it was, to me, I saw that as my way of getting back into the composing game because I seemed to veer off into sound design and more sound design, and it was becoming almost 100% sound design. So to do that was pretty cool, and with us not doing it for a while, it was challenging because new technology would come out, new libraries would come out, and people were kind of like ahead of the game, I suppose. So I needed to kind of get at least in line with them. So I enjoyed doing that. I did that. I did a couple of other tracks, kind of Mario-esque tracks. There was a couple of games where you run around picking up, coins and stuff and picking up random. It's basically 3D Mario. You know, it was quite a cool game. So I did a couple of like up-tempo tracks for that, which sounded quite retro, and then there was kind of more driving jobs. So it was kind of this one was interactive music. So I'd have like 8 bars of a certain tone, 8 bars of another tone. That kind of gradually got, that would play that 8 bars, 4 bars, depending on where you were, and then it would switch to another one if it got more intense. So it was kind of dynamic with the on-screen action. That was quite challenging because you could drive from A to B quicker than the bar would change. So you had to kind of make sure there were, 8 bars was quite lengthy at times, so you had to make sure there were like bars or beats, which, how do you get a piece of music in a bar or a beat, without it sounding repetitive? So it was quite a bit of a challenge, so we kind of had to structure it so that you knew you were going to get to the bit soon, so you would switch the music before you got to that bit, so by the time you got to it, it was more likely to just change tone. So that was the challenge of that. It was interactive, so it wasn't like a linear track from start to finish. You were probably looking at about 16 different modulars that you would switch between depending on where you were in the game.
So this is a kind of a bit of a bonus question from me, which I've just kind of thought of this. There was an Angel of Darkness DVD game, and I played it recently, and to my shock, it doesn't really feature much of the Angel of Darkness soundtrack.
Right.
It's actually got spliced in music from Tomb Raiders 1, 2, and 3, which is quite interesting, as well as a couple of tracks from you. Yes. Obviously, this, I'm guessing by your reaction, is something that you've not known about. So my question was going to be, how involved were you with that, or were you aware of this project?
I think I'm aware of it. I was completely not involved in it. And it's just something I kind of remember, but I couldn't really pinpoint anything specific about it. But yeah, it does sound odd that Angel of Darkness has, I don't know if there was a license problem, or I don't know if the develop. I don't know. I really don't know why that ended up.
It's a very strange one. It's honestly, I've got a video on my channel. We played it on stream. It was a nightmare to get working, but I let the chat take control because there are certain points where she stops and you have to pick an action, almost like a choose your own adventure type scenario. Often with some quite unintentionally hilarious results with some of the outcomes. Like one thing which I think will make you chuckle is when Curtis gets stabbed by Boaz. They decided for some reason to replace the sound effect that was originally in the game with a generic kind of royalty-free party squelch sound effect instead.
It sounds cheap, doesn't it?
It sounds cheap. I'll see if I can clip it from the video and send it to you, because it sounds absolutely hilarious. It's so bad. It's so bad, but it's a very strange beast, so I thought I'd just throw that out there just in case you happen to know about it. It was released in 2006, so I don't know whether or not you were still on the scene.
It rings a bell. I was gone by then. I was back north by then, but I remember something about it. I think it was an IDOS developed thing or SCI developed thing. With core design, we're definitely not involved with it, as far as I know. I don't know. It'd be good to have a little look and find out some more details about that, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, go for it. If you're interested, I can link you the playthrough we did, because it was quite the journey, and you can
I'd love to see that,
see
actually,
everything as it intends. Yeah, because a lot of the times you sort of have Lara on a set of stairs, and the choice would be jump off stairs or go one direction or the other, and the chat would always first pick the option that would guarantee certain death for me each time. So I've got a very caring community, clearly. But no, I'll send you to that later. I thought that was probably the answer you were going to give anyway.
I remember I was developing an arcade machine, or being a part of a licensing an arcade machine based on Lara Croft. And I remember handing a load of sound effects and music for that, but whatever come of that, I have no idea.
Was that the one they've done for the reboot trilogy? Because there is an arcade machine for the reboot era Lara Croft.
No, this would have been about 2003, 2004.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I've not heard of any other arcade machines for the franchise other than that one. So maybe it was a project that didn't get off the ground until much later, and they decided to go back to it.
I think when the whole transition went from core design to Rebellion, I think things got lost at that point.
Lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. I do remember in 2003 would have been. I do remember. You remember when ringtones were quite the thing. People would download ringtones for £5. You could actually download Dance the Lux Veritatis. I remember thinking, what? That's weird. So obviously I had nothing to do with that, but it'd be interesting to find out on my Nokia 3310. So I downloaded it, paid the £5. It never arrived.
What? No way. I wonder if that exists somewhere in the ether that someone could possibly look into, because that'd be interesting. That'd be interesting for you to hear.
I would love to hear it, yeah. I was curious to hear it.
It would probably end up being like, oh, that sounds amazing. That's the best version of that track. I don't hate it anymore.
That's it, yeah. That's the one I want.
It's the missing link. But lastly, it's going to end on a positive, and it's going to end less of a question but more of a statement from one of our users called Quinn of Atlantis. And she just wanted to let you know that she wants to thank you, and I'm sure the rest of the community does as well, for the music of Angel of Darkness and all the other music that you've created, because she thinks that Angel of Darkness for her is the best and most memorable music that she has heard in any video game that she's played. So she just wants to say a big, massive thank you to you, Peter, for making such iconic and amazing music.
And Martin Iverson, he was equally.
Of course, yes, and Martin too, yeah.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. It was an honour to work on. I mean, the minute we heard we're going to be using the London Symphony Orchestra in Abbey Road Studio 1, it was just like, it's not an opportunity that comes to you every day, so it's like I feel absolutely blessed and humbled, so yes, yeah. I loved it. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, no problem at all. Well, that's just going to do it for this interview. All that's left to say is just a massive, massive thank you to you, Pete, for giving me the opportunity to speak to what I consider one of the titans of the music video gaming sector.
Where's he gone?
So, yeah, honestly, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have spoken to you. And,
likewise.
To listen to me ask questions and stumble over me words and everything else in between.
I hope it doesn't come across as too Geordie, because when I get carried away chatting, it does kind of like move a little bit broader.
It was still comprehensible to me, and I'm a southerner, so there you go.
Brilliant, nice one. I appreciate everything you've done as well. I appreciate the time you've taken out to do this. It's hugely appreciated.
Thank you, man. And yes, I wish you all the best with your endeavours in the future, Pete.
Thank you very much. I'll keep you updated. I'll send them links on Facebook or whatever, and I'll have some giggles as I go.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, that reminds me, is there any social links or things you would like to shout out before we go? So where can people follow you and find Peter Connelly? I mean,
there's the Dark Angel shop, which is due to unforeseen circumstances. So corporate that did. It's shutting down a week tomorrow. Any stock we've got will not be replenishing. So basically, if all the CDs sell, that's it. There'll not be any more. So if you do want them, I'll jump on board quickly. That sounds so sales.
No, not at all. Not at all. If people want to get their hands on this stuff, they need to do it now.
Exactly, yeah, it is. I hate selling things. I'm not a salesman, but if anyone does want to own any of the products, it needs to be done like within this next week. And like I say, the longer you leave it, the more chance of not getting it is. It depends on how many people buy it, I suppose. But yeah, once it's gone, it's gone.
Same with the digital stuff as well. Is there going to be an avenue explored to maybe make those still available, or is that
I don't know. that's something we're kind of working out at the minute. I do know that if anyone has bought the digital stuff and it's kind of in their account, we will work it out so that they can access it by whatever means, as time passes. But I think in general we need to kind of like accept that, or kind of understand that everything is going out off sale. So
fair enough. What about social media links? Where can they follow you? You on Twitter, Facebook,
yes.
SoundCloud?
Twitter. SoundCloud's a good one because I've just started pushing SoundCloud. If you want to look for Backrest Records on SoundCloud and follow and just comment, like whatever, just make it look busy, make it look like it's active. That'll be hugely appreciated. SoundCloud, it's dead easy to sign up to. It's not one of the most commonly known platforms, but to be honest, I think it's one of the best ones out there.
Yes, support this man, please. I implore you. And please. And obviously you got at Peter Connelly, I believe, on Twitter. Yeah,
there's Peter Connelly, and then there's a dog. Tomb Raider. It's the Dark Angel Symphony, or whatever. Yeah, that's more of an Astro thing, so I don't really know the full details. But yeah, there's Peter Connelly 72 or something at Twitter, and then there's Peter Connelly Music on Facebook as well. So
excellent stuff. And obviously you got the music that's, I believe, is still staying on Spotify as well.
Yeah, it's all staying there until further notice. Yeah, it's only the shop closing.
I've kept you here long enough. I'm just going to let you go now. So thank you very much, Peter, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, John. Thank you too. You have a good weekend. Take care. Bye.